Welcome in and welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon. We're live here on a Monday night as we get ready for Week 3 college football recap and reactions. A lot of different topics we're going to touch on tonight, so make sure you lock it in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Will and Ralph joining in here just a second, right here on tonight's episode of The Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.
Welcome in and welcome in. My name is Bryce Koon alongside Will Mannis and Ralph Leary. Week 3 has come and gone, and we appreciate you tuning in on tonight's episode of The Crowded Booth. A couple things before we get started. If you're watching this on YouTube live or after the fact, which a lot of you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you like the video as well and share with your friends. And if you're listening in the podcast feed, thanks, shout out to Believe. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button to that feed as well. All of those things completely free and helps share the show. Will and Ralph, Will's rocking the Falcons hat tonight, and we'll see what happens. We will see what happens, Will. Falcons, Eagles, Monday Night Football as we speak right now live. So I don't know.
Defense got a 3-and-out on the opening drive. So
all right. And apparently the Falcons run game looks like they're doing some stuff early on. I just saw a tweet that said that. So that's potentially pretty good. We can talk about. All right, we will talk about this. We will talk about Week 3. We will talk about several different topics. We'll get into our takeaways and, of course, the bloodbath that was best bets. But, Ralph, I think you won yours.
I did. I was the only one to win theirs.
I really thought I had a shot.
This is almost as bad as last year's Notre Dame and Navy one.
No, not nearly as bad.
It's hard to predict a team is going to onside kick up 31-0. That's hard to foresee.
Yeah, that's just yeah, but we're gonna Sam Lord says fade, or Will Gavin says fade. Well, Sam says fade the booth. That might be a new hashtag trending. We don't know.
Yeah, I'm
except Ralph.
Thank you,
all right, let's talk college football here. Let's go back.
Don't take Ralph's conference championship picks.
Ralph is the only true sportsman here. True.
Finally.
You know, Ralph, I don't know how long Ralph's making his way down to Louisiana this weekend, and we're going to go to the game. And I don't know how long Ralph's staying, though. I don't remember if you've nailed down a date. But if we'll see, it could be Will on one slide for next Monday night show.
That's not happening.
Me and Ralph sitting on the couch.
That's just not happening.
Next to each other. It could be. We'll see.
It's not going to happen there.
By the way, did you see LSU opened up as a 23.5-point favorite against UCLA?
I did.
I'm taking UCLA plus 23.5.
You're going to take the team that lost to Indiana?
Hey, Indiana.
On radio in Baton Rouge, for literally a whole segment, they talked about how Curt Cignetti and Indiana are actually maybe pretty decent.
There are people saying that Indiana has a better chance to make the playoffs than Clemson does right now.
Yeah,
that is something I have read today. And I still have no idea how that's possible.
The Big Ten is just making all kinds of surprises. Iowa hung 38 for Iowa.
All right, listen here.
Sorry, Ralph.
What you need to talk about?
38?
Shut up. Against Sharman's soft defense, I did.
Ralph got off work. I don't know how long Ralph's staying. Was that a threat? And then, no UPS packages in Columbus this weekend. Yeah. Well, it is what it is. He's got to do what he's got to do. All right, let's talk. Let's get to our key takeaways. Remember how we do this on Monday nights? Each of us has a takeaway of the weekend that we'll give the podium to one person, and then we'll all discuss kind of our thoughts on it, and then we move along into the theme of the show, which we'll get to, obviously, here in a little bit. But first up, who wants to go first? Who wants to raise their hand and go first on their big takeaway?
Will wants to go first.
Let Will. Will, do you want to go first?
Sure.
He's got a good topic.
Yeah, good topic conversation. Give the platform to Will. There you go.
Yeah, Texas is next up. I've seen enough. I feel good enough to say that. Now, you're probably like, what are you talking about? They're next up. They're the number one team in the country. Well, they're the number one team in the country because they showed on Saturday that they have two starting quarterbacks. Arch Manning came in relief of Quinn Ewers and lit it up. And, it's UTSA. UTSA is not nearly as good as they have been in recent years, but they're still a top-end group of 5 program. So not much of a slouch, but Texas has just dominated. They've dominated the first 3 weeks. obviously blanking Colorado State 52-0, going into the Big House, beating the defending national champions Michigan 31-12 at their place, and then beating UTSA 56-7 with their backup quarterback. Texas, has they've looked the part, and when I say next up, I really mean they're the next dynasty. I'm staking the claim they're going to take Alabama's place. Although Alabama looked pretty good and showing that they're not going anywhere yet, but I've seen enough of Texas on both sides of the ball. Look at the numbers. They're scoring 46 points a game. They're giving up 6 points a game. I don't care who you're playing. If you're only giving up 6 points per game through 3 games, that's impressive. That's impressive. Let's see. They're averaging nearly 5 yards a carry through 3 games. Passing 10 yards per attempt passing, averaging 14 yards, nearly 14 yards per catch, over 340 passing yards a game, 13 passing touchdowns through 3 games already. And you look what their defense has done against the pass. They're going up 4.7 yards per attempt, about 7 yards per catch. They've only given up 1 passing touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown. Yeah, 2 total touchdowns given up through 3 games. They've got the depth, they've got the talent, they've got the quality, and they've got the coaching. They are top to bottom. I don't know. Am I being too low by saying they have a top 3 coaching staff in the country? I think that staff is that good. So I see Texas. Texas is going to be in the playoff, in the quarterfinal, semifinal, probably every year for the next 5-6 years.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one knock that's going to come against Sarkisian, and like I said, they have a great staff, but the knock is going to be essentially, well, until he wins the national championship. Like a lot of what happened with Kirby Smart, and when he, had some good teams but never got the championship, then once he got it, nobody could really say anything. I think Texas might be trending in that same direction, like you mentioned. No, this is a really good football team, Will, and
I laugh when you bring up Kirby Smart, because you remember several years ago, the early days of the Crowded Booth, we did a show and I made a little Google slideshow about how Kirby Smart was Mark Richt.
Are you ready for this? I don't know if you're quite ready for this. I still think I have.
Do you have it ready? I saw it the other day looking through my Google Drive. I saw it.
There's no way we still have that.
It is. I mean, you can tell I didn't major in graphic design with this slideshow.
I'm genuinely think that I have this. Let me see. Or did I delete it? Come on, Bryce.
But it was, if you can't find it, I essentially put together a spread. Oh, there it is. He found it.
Oh.
Look at this. This is a throwback, by the way. For people, once again, we got to remember we have people that listen to the show. So this is a visual representation that Will put together 3 years ago, at least, or 4 years ago, of Mark Richt versus Kirby
this was
Smart.
after 2020. I compared Mark Richt's first 5 years and Kirby Smart's first 5 years. And they are, I mean, you look at them, they're nearly the same.
Look at that picture, man.
Look at that.
I mean, Mark Richt won that Sugar Bowl his second year. Kirby Smart won the playoff game his second year. So I was like, those equivalents, because BCS versus the playoff, they were so strikingly similar.
Yeah. Here's my thing on Texas is I think a lot of this conversation is going to maybe trend towards should Arch Manning start. Let's first off say, like, UTSA is not what they were. They're also not, like, Jeff Traylor has stayed too long. I think that's pretty much a big deal. This is Sam says, "Dear Lord, we'll take a marketing class."
Sam, this was before I took all my marketing classes.
This is before. Ultima says Texas looks like the real Texas again. I'm glad they aren't on Georgia Tech's schedule. I think a lot of teams, Ultima, are glad that Texas is not on their schedule, and it makes for an interesting season because when you look who Texas has to play, I mean, obviously they're going to host Georgia next month. They're going to. I can't remember off the top of my head the rest of the SEC slate that they have, but
it's pretty easy.
It's manageable for them to be able to.
Kentucky, Florida, Vanderbilt,
Oklahoma, obviously, Mississippi State.
You go Oklahoma, Georgia, and then you got Vanderbilt. Then it's like Florida, Kentucky, A&M, and Arkansas.
from what we know, 3 weeks into the season, that's
pretty manageable.
pretty manageable. No,
I mean,
you're right. I mean, go ahead.
I would say if you fall one of Georgia, you're probably seeing Georgia again in Atlanta.
Well,
honestly.
I think Jonesy said this: Texas and Georgia could play 3 times, and that's not out of the question either. Kind of going back to that and finish my point, letting Ralph kind of take it is, I think Texas is really really good, and this is the biggest hallmark of what we've seen. Will, to back up what you're saying, when they have played lesser competition, they've thoroughly dominated. It didn't matter when certain guys were out. It didn't matter about other things that, when they got late into the game, there was not a massive drop off in terms of the ones and the twos and the threes. And then the second thing is when they played a premier opponent in Michigan. I don't think Michigan's very good. Alex Orji was named the starting quarterback this week. But still, when they went and played a high profile game, they dominated. And that's just what you're supposed to do. A lot of people like to talk about, well, they don't play anybody, they don't do anything. They've done what they've needed to do, and they've done it impressively against the competition that has been put in front of them. And I think if you're a Texas fan, you're 3 games into this thing, you're thinking, okay, like this could be a championship season, even with, and I was very, not critical, but it was a question mark for me. Bo Davis leaves, a very good defensive line coach. They lost 2 big defensive linemen to the draft. What would that look like? So far, it's looked good. I will be interested when they play an actual high-powered offense, what that could look like.
Yeah, we just rattled through their schedule. Are they going to play a high-powered offense?
Outside of Georgia, I don't know if they do. Oklahoma, well, we got to see what Oklahoma is. We'll see that this weekend, but
and then Georgia. I mean, they struggled.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, and I've got we've got enough to talk about that game.
I mean,
but yeah, Texas.
I was talking to Will before this, Bryce, and my thing is Quinn Ewers gonna be out too long, but they have them week to week right now. They play ULM this weekend. They get Mississippi State next weekend at home, and you get a bye week before you play Oklahoma. You have time. Let him sit. Let Arch play for 2 weeks, and you get Quinn Ewers back in 3 weeks. You're fully healthy. Then, don't hurt him. I mean, you got an easy schedule from here on until you play Oklahoma. Your offenses look really good with Arch back there. He looked comfortable. It doesn't matter who you play, like you said. It's him being comfortable back there. He obviously looked like a 5-star quarterback that we all thought he could be. We hadn't seen him play yet until now. So, I agree with Will. I think Texas is next. This is, someone said in the comments earlier, this is the real Texas we've been seeing, when we've been wanting to see for years. Yeah. And Texas being this kind of good is good for college football, honestly.
Yeah. No, it is. It's good for college football, good for the sport. And, all the jokes and the memes about is Texas back? I think they are. I mean, I think we can legitimately talk about this team being back. Now, a lot of people, they're not winning a championship. But, okay, like if that's the only thing that constitutes you being back, then only one team is truly back every single year. They are back as a national player year in, year out. Obviously, what they did last year, and then kind of building into what could be a special season in the SEC. I wanted to get this question.
They're showing it's not a flash in the pan, whereas the team that beat them in the playoff, they just lost on Saturday. Although it's totally different. But
Ken says, I know this is out there, but if Georgia beats Texas twice, would they still go? Probably.
If you're Texas, two losses to Georgia, I'd still put them in there because you're taking Georgia's number 1.
I mean, they'd be what, 11-2? You can't keep out an 11-2 SEC runner-up. There's no way.
They'd probably be like the 9th or 10th seed.
They're still in
like
that.
I mean,
they're better than
the committee might push them back just for optics to make it look like they shouldn't be in, but I think they're in.
I'll say this: 11-2 Texas is better than any other ACC runner-up.
Well, yeah, okay. They're better than the Big 12 runner-up.
They're better than anyone. I mean, I won't say Big 10.
They're better than the Big 10 runner-up.
Hey, honest to God, might be. I mean, if we're being real.
I'll say this: if we're saying Ohio State wins the Big 10, Oregon looked a lot more like themselves on Saturday.
They did.
Finally.
But if it's 2 close losses, and Georgia, let's say Georgia drops one to either let's say Georgia drops one on the road to Ole Miss or Alabama, and you have like a 13-1 as Georgia SEC champion, probably the 1 or 2 seed, depending on what Ohio State does. Texas has got to be up there, especially if Notre Dame falters and is pushed out. They're better than the Carolina Panthers. Everyone is. Bryce Young got benched. It's a completely stupid decision by the Panthers, in my opinion.
I don't know.
The Soda High School team in Texas could be the Carolina Panthers, probably.
Probably. I missed the Texas that would lose to Kansas at home. Don't we all? That was amazing. That was an amazing, amazing time. Speaking of Vandy, shout out to Georgia State. Big win for those guys. Yeah, no, that was a big win. That was a crazy game. If you did not catch the end of that game,
underrated game.
Nuts. There was like 21 points scored in the last 3 minutes.
That was kind of like the old Vandy. That's what we're used to seeing from Vandy.
Yes.
Just
the last
win and
minute of that game.
Exactly. All right, Texas, number 1 in the country, and man, they're looking like it. I wouldn't even say they're next up. Will, you might not be too bold. They're here. They're here, as Deion Sanders says. Okay, let's. Will, I don't have a throwback moment of the week for you. Last week it was the Nicholls State fullback that ran for 135 yards against LSU. I didn't find one today. We'll have to go back and research that. Dr. Bob, get Dr. Bob Center because I missed the Georgia that would almost lose to the Nicholls State Colonels at home. Dr. Bob, go find
who played on that
some
team that was
ridiculous
from
stat that
last
Will would
chance.
love to.
Was that Ronald Ollie who played for that Nicholls
Yeah,
State?
it was.
Who got that Nicholls State?
I remember that. I remember watching that game and seeing him play.
Crazy. Dr. Bob, before we move on to the next topic, make sure that you go find some random stat from like a fullback or like a middle linebacker with a extended neck roll or something like that, and that'll be our
Not Kyle.
Please don't.
Not Kyle.
Not Kyle.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the next topic. Ralph, I want to go to yours first because it kind of plays into what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
And it's talking about Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs where, look, fellas, I mean, there's no other way to put this. They struggled. And I shot off a couple texts to some people that cover Georgia. And, we talked about it a little bit. Here's what I'll say, Ralph, and I'll lead into it. There has been a track record of Georgia struggling in their SEC opener over the past couple of seasons. South Carolina last year, where South Carolina almost beat them at home. Obviously, Missouri was a trouble with someone. And Kentucky always plays Georgia tough. It's always a weird game for Georgia to play. Very physical.
Especially when it's at Kentucky.
At Kentucky, yes. So, Ralph, didn't mean to take yours from you, but I wanted to kind of get that in before you go.
No, I mean, I talked to you about this earlier. I mean, truly, I thought Georgia looked terrible. I say terrible as in, this is not the team that we saw the first 2 weeks. This is not the team we saw play against Clemson in week 1. This is the offense that we saw years and years ago when Kirby got here. Really just kind of lazy play calls. They weren't moving the ball very well. And you had 12 first downs as an offense. Against a team that got blown out by South Carolina last week. No, not going to discredit South Carolina. They played an extremely great game that week and played a great game on Saturday. And Bryce will get that one later. But it was a disappointing performance by Georgia. And I've talked to many of Georgia's fans since then, and they're all just very disappointed. And the constant comments I hear is Mike Bobo's fault. And we've heard it for years. It's always going to be Mike Bobo's fault. I just think the whole team was not executing properly. I think a lot of missed blocks, a lot of bad reads. They weren't catching passes. I mean, Brock Vandagriff looked good for Kentucky. Don't get me wrong. They weren't very efficient offensively either, but Georgia's defense is very good. Carson Beck did not have his best day. Them running the ball as a team. Normally, I'm looking at Georgia to have over 200 yards rushing per week with an amazing offensive line and a stacked backfield of running backs. 30 carries for 102 yards. It's disappointing. I mean, it truly is. Carson Beck, obviously 15 to 24, 160, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Not great, but not bad. I just thought, 2 fumbles on the team, none of them lost, and just, coughing the ball up. Defense wasn't playing terrific. They had their moments. They made big stops, but it just wasn't Georgia that we saw week 1. And I thought this team came in as a 22-point favorite on the road in Kentucky, and they only won by 1 point. The under hit, Georgia. I mean, I saw all over Twitter people were saying, "What happened? What's going on?" And the main question is, what happened with Georgia? I don't know. I just think they got a little lazy this week. They saw what happened to what South Carolina did to them the week before, and Georgia went out there, tried to just probably play a lazy game, looking forward to the next week. And they weren't prepared because guess what? You have Alabama after this week.
Mm-hmm.
And the way Alabama looked on Saturday, that's scary. If Georgia plays like that on Saturday in 2 weeks, it's gonna be ugly. It will be very ugly.
So I agree. I disagreed with you in the beginning, and then you made a point that I did really agree with, and I wanted to get to that because you mentioned the laziness factor. Kirby Smart said that post game. I thought Kirby Smart's post game interview was very. It was one of his interviews that he did that where you said, "Okay, that's real," because it's gotten to the point. I told you guys this at SEC Media Days. I don't even care to talk to any Georgia players because it's like it's someone asked Carson Beck what he thought about being the highest rated quarterback in the new football game, and he's like, "We're just focused on winning games. Have some fun. Stop being a robot and have some fun. It's okay to have a little fun at times." But I did want to say this because in his post game interview, Kirby Smart mentioned what you just said, Ralph, in a sense that I think our guys underestimated what it takes to win on the road. And you cannot judge a team off of what they were the week before or just 1 week. Kentucky was still a good football team. And Brian Kelly said this today, and I'm going to get to my point here in a little bit, but I just think that this was an example of Kentucky's not as bad as people thought they were, which was an overreaction. Maybe some of the Georgia players inside the locker room, Ralph, like you mentioned, said, "Hey, they saw that. Maybe we don't need, maybe we don't need to bring our A+ game." Okay. But I think also it's hard to win on the road. I'll talk about that in a second. But just to kind of finish up what I'm saying here, Georgia's defense looked very, very good. I think Jalen Walker is a freak. Jalen Walker is a monster. And he's a hard guy to block just with anybody. And so that's going to be difficult. KJ Bolden is really starting to get some more playing time and looks really, really nice. And he's probably glad that he chose Georgia and probably glad that he, didn't go to Florida State. But I wasn't even going to mention Auburn if that's what you were going to say.
I mean, he'd be playing every down if he was at Auburn.
He
every
would.
down.
He would. But then to kind of finish it off, Ralph, you mentioned like you go back to those stats. Okay, yes, they only averaged 3.4 yards per carry. Trevor Etienne had a tough 79 yards though. He averaged 4.2 per carry. So I think that was something that was. I think that was something that was kind of nice and telling to see, him kind of healthy. Reports he kind of had gotten a little bit banged up, and then obviously the suspension they had. But I don't know. I think that Georgia did enough to win. They've done this for the past 3 or 4 years. I think this was a massive overreaction. I still think this team is very good, one of the best in the country. They just got popped in the mouth. It's a new group. And I think that's one thing Georgia learns about one game every single year is it doesn't matter what the team the year before you does. That's not this group anymore. And Kirby Smart, now, here's the funny part of it. If you're a Georgia fan or you're Kirby Smart, now you get the talking points. Hey, guys, they don't think you're good enough now. And so now it's the whole Nick Saban-esque of creating something out of nothing where you're no longer the number one team in the country. You struggled on the road. There's going to be doubters where maybe that wasn't that in the beginning and you couldn't manufacture that. So I think it's a little bit of an overreaction that is Georgia not elite or is Georgia a bad football team? No, I think they're good. I think Carson Beck's still very, very good. I think Kentucky just played really, really well. Kentucky has an All-American on the defensive line in Deion Walker. That kid is a very, very good football player. Jamon Wisconsin played very well in this game as well.
We need to give a shout-out, though, Bryce, to a guy. I forgot he was playing, and you told me he was playing. I didn't realize he was out there.
Well,
J.Q. Hardaway from Hardaway High School in Columbus had a great game. I'm sorry, he finished at Central, if I'm correct.
Finished at Central, like a lot of kids.
Finished at Central. Yeah. Except Michael. Michael's the only one who didn't do it. But like, shout out to
yet another kid right down the road that Brian Horson
chose not to recruit. Didn't even offer him.
I didn't think he offered him.
No,
okay, let's go get one on that pedestal. But J.Q. Hardaway did play very well, Ralph. Did play very well.
Great job for him.
Kentucky's a physical football team. If I'm a Georgia fan, I'm not concerned. You leave with a win, you survive in advance. Will, your thoughts?
Well, everybody calls me a DGD anyway, so I'm not concerned. A couple things. Kirby Smart says every single year that Kentucky is the most physical football team they play all year. So when you get them your first SEC game, it hits different. The SEC hits different, and Georgia found that. What was it? 2 years ago? 3 years ago, maybe. Georgia went on the road to Missouri and had to kick a last-second field goal to win to beat a Missouri team that ended up going 6-6. So, Bryce, it's like you said, you have to learn how to win on the road, and Georgia has had to do that every single year. Their first game they go on the road, they do not play well, especially offensively. Whether it be crowd. Yeah, Auburn last year. Auburn had that game won too. so they just have to learn. I think there's a lot of, not saying that it's a bad attitude or Georgia should change their attitude of saying, well, we're Georgia, we know we're great, but it's just having to, all these young players, these new starters, most of them have heard that and have told themselves that since they showed up in January, and then they play a team that plays them really close and probably could have beat them. They have to change their mentality now, and now they have a bye week before Alabama. There's no concern. I saw Austin commenting about Mike Bobo. I mean, death taxes, and Mike Bobo's the worst offensive coordinator ever. That's all you hear from. That's a guarantee of life of Georgia fans. There's only so much the play caller can do. I mean, if players aren't making the plays, it's not on it's not on the play caller. So what happened to Georgia? They played terrible, and Kentucky. Yeah. Kentucky's probably been preparing for Georgia since spring practice. Honestly,
well, and you also got to think too. Kentucky's probably a little bit pissed off about how they played. So there's a bit sense of the week before, like, hey, no, we're actually pretty good and played up to the opponent.
Yeah, and last thing about Kentucky, I think already this year we've seen the worst of Kentucky against South Carolina and the best of Kentucky. Saw that against Georgia, and so I saw Ken commenting about it. When you've got your starting linebacker and your starting quarterback transferring from Georgia, that is a huge asset. They, in meetings, film sessions, on the field during the games, they know exactly what Georgia's going to do on both sides of the ball. So they're helping putting their teammates in position to make the plays, and that really showed up. That showed up Saturday night.
Sam says, was Kentucky just looking ahead?
Probably.
Maybe, because I will say this, and we'll talk about it in the next segment. This entire show, and I know Will and I more emphatically, we're really kind of out on South Carolina this year. Look, we had Shane Beamer on in the spring, and he talked about it, but we were kind of out on that. Like, Will, I vividly remember as I was sitting in that press box on Saturday, you and I going, they're going to be terrible. 6 games, 6 wins, and all this kind of stuff, and it is what it is. But
hey, they played
I don't
great.
know if they were looking at maybe so. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say Kentucky was looking ahead. You'll get to it, but yeah, South Carolina, they look great against LSU. But unfortunately for them, their Achilles heel got shown in a big way in that second half. In a big way.
In the name of Robbie.
I mean, yeah. But and Bryce, you'll talk about it more, but winning on the road in the SEC is extremely difficult, and there's a couple games this week that I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to say you're going to hear me say it a couple times, probably on Wednesday night, because we're getting a full slate of SEC games this weekend. So there you go, Bryce. Bryce, take it away. Tell us why winning on the road is hard.
That's a perfect segue there, Will. I can clip that right there and we can roll. No, look, this is something, and it's not even just in the SEC. I mentioned this in the Discord on Saturday evening, I think. A lot of Georgia Tech fans that watch our show were upset and didn't understand why they lost at Syracuse. And you see these teams that you think on paper you should be better than. But my thing is that just winning on the road and what goes into that, into the mental battle, it's very hard. Like, it's just a hard thing to do, to take your process. I see these guys laughing. It's a hard thing to do, and to take your process into a different place, unfamiliar territory, and do everything you need to do there. And that's why the great teams, the elite teams in college football, can do that with regularity. And it doesn't matter if it's, ugly, or if you leave and you get the win. And so obviously we talked about the Georgia game, but I'll sit here and talk a little bit about the LSU South Carolina game. I came into that one, and I think that I mentioned, Dr. Bob remembered this and I didn't. He said, like, I predicted the game almost right on the head. Like, I thought LSU would win the game and South Carolina would cover, because winning on the road is hard. You talk about environments, you talk about, like I said, taking your process into enemy territory. It's just something that's not easy to do. That's why we have such things as home field advantage. And I think that we saw that, especially, and guys, I'll tell you this, I made the trip Flew in Friday, and I'll just kind of give you a synopsis here. I flew into Columbia on Friday afternoon, got some great barbecue. Ralph saw the picture. It was an awesome little place right there next to campus. And Columbia was buzzing. It was for the first time in 10 years that College Game Day had been there. The fan base, the students showed up at 4:15 in the morning to be able to get into College Game Day. And look, South Carolina is roughly roughly the same size as Auburn's. And those are two environments, I will say, that I've been to now, both personally, that outdo themselves in terms of attendance compared to other SEC places. You could argue that both of those environments are better than SEC venues that have more allotted attendance, if that makes sense. It was crazy. I sent you guys the videos of Sandstorm. It's amazing. It's unreal. And LSU had to go in there, and on paper, Vegas thought so. We thought so. Most people kind of thought so, that LSU was the better football team on paper. And what do we see? South Carolina jump out to a 17-0 lead. The place is rocking. Ralph, I know you liked the tweet because I saw it. I said, there's like 8 minutes left in the first quarter, and they've already played Mo Bamba. Like LSU might be in trouble here today. And, you start.
They had the squiggly lines on the routes.
They had the squiggly lines. That you couldn't see where Kyron Lacey was running his route. Garrett Nussmeier didn't know what button to hit. So you just kind of look at this. My big takeaway of the weekend is that survive in advance. We put so much stock into, and I think we've just lost sight of as college football fans and as people who cover the sport. And I'll never complain about being able to cover the sport and fly and go to different places. But people who cover the sport and just fans in general, we've kind of lost sight of, well, that team's supposed to be better. They're just supposed to go win. And yeah, maybe. But when you go on the road, it's just a hard thing to go and do. It's difficult to go do and come out victorious. So if you win 13-12 like Georgia did, if you win 36-33, erase a 17-0 deficit like LSU did, yes, there's things you need to clean up for both of those teams. But you know what? It's a lot better to get back into that film room on Sunday evening or Monday morning and be dealing with, well, we got to clean these things up, but we got to win. It's a lot more somber to do it when you didn't execute and you got to clean things up, and now you got another loss on your resume if you were LSU in that situation. But they would have been 1-2. So, guys, I don't know. We can, Ralph, you can cut back to all three of us here. I just think that we have underestimated. I really agreed with Kirby Smart's post-game comments. As fans, we've become so just this toxic social media culture of, we're better than them, we need to go beat them, and we don't allow for a lot of gray area in this. And one of the big gray areas is home field advantage, playing on the road. It's a difficult thing to do. And I think not only maybe did Georgia do that, I don't think LSU did, but I think LSU's just not as good as people think they are. But, I just think we have underestimated how hard it is, how difficult it is to go on the road and win. And I'll say this, a lot of LSU fans are still mad about it. And it's like, if you're still angry about what happened, I get it. Go clean up some things. But you won the football game. And so that really, at the end of the day, is all that matters. We get caught up in a lot of these different things. Winning the football game is what matters. I don't know, fellas. Will, I'll let you take it first here. I just think we've gotten to a point where it's just like, we look at stats, we look at, the betting odds, and we say, well, they should beat them, and that's in. And when we get overly disappointed and we don't understand the nuances, we put numbers on everything. We don't understand that these are human beings playing the game, and there's a lot of different variables.
How dare you call me out like that? I mean, how dare
you? I don't know. What would you say?
You're talking right to me. That's why I took Auburn minus 14 against Cal as my best bet.
Beat Auburn. If that's what you're trying to sit here and say, that's an impressive win. That's a hard thing to do. Auburn did the same thing last year. I don't care. This is what, Will, I'll give you props. I don't care that Auburn barely beat Cal and it looked ugly last year at Cal. They went and won. It's a hard thing to do. It's not easy.
Yeah, it is. So, no, I'm messing with you. But, I think you said it, and it speaks for itself. Winning on the road is hard. I've already talked with Sam, our Tennessee friend, about them going to Norman, Oklahoma this weekend. I think Tennessee opened up as a touchdown favorite. He's nervous. He's nervous about it because it's the first time this Tennessee team's going on the road. Nico's first true road game, and you're playing a team that has a good defense. It's not going to be a cakewalk, but if you compare these two teams on paper, you look at what they've done the first 3 weeks of the year, you think, oh, this is slam dunk. Tennessee, they just have to show up and they'll win. but it's not how it works. And, that's why I think, and, I know it'll be Oklahoma's first SEC game. Texas knew the SEC, but it doesn't matter. Those two programs were perfect fits for the SEC because it's not going to matter that it's their first year. They are the most like SEC environments outside the SEC before this year. So, in that regard, Tennessee probably won't be, taken aback by that. But it's probably the hardest thing to do in football, college or professional, is to go on the road and win.
Yeah, no, I do believe. Before we get to you, Ralph, I do want to welcome in a new member of the booth. He decided to join the booth, make it a little more crowded. Shout out Francis Liddon. Ralph, you can put that up there, I guess. Can you? Yeah, Francis Liddon became a YouTube member here on the show. We appreciate you, Francis. Ralph, your thoughts? Because I think look, your team had to go do it this past week. Troy had to go to Iowa, and they were very competitive in that football game. It got ugly late, I would say, out of hand, maybe late in the game. But it's just people just underestimate how hard it is to go do things like that on the road. And I'm going to stop saying that sentence over and over again, so you guys will stop laughing in the background. I got to say difficult. But anyways, what you're saying, Ralph?
I went under Iowa's final score tweet, and a lot of people were saying that they were very impressed by how Troy played, and they were very well coached.
Best team in the country.
Definitely not. Far from that.
Better than Florida State. I will give you that.
Well, I don't know. We put up more points against Memphis than they did, I think. So, I'm not. But look, going to the road's hard. I mean, look, you saw Troy do it a few years ago. They went down to LSU. It was one of the loudest environments in college football. They went to Nebraska a few years later. Winning on the road, is difficult for any school. I mean, I mean, if Ohio State traveled to play, let's say they did a home and away, they're going to go to play Rutgers. Okay, Rutgers does not have a fan base like Ohio State does. They're not as electric as the shoe is. But either way, you have to travel. You have those, maybe you don't have a delay in your flight. You might have to do a red eye or something like that. It's a little difficult sometimes. You're not sleeping in your normal place. You're not in the same environment. You're not having the same warm ups, and your pregame rituals may be a little different this week because their away team locker room's a little different setup. There are so many factors that play into any game going on the road for any team. Because even when I was at Troy, I had friends that played, and it said when they went to play at Boise State my freshman year, freshman year, they played at Boise State. No, it was sophomore year at Boise State. They said warming up on the field was so weird, seeing the blue turf, and seeing Boise State warm up in blue jerseys.
Yeah, he
said it's unfair. It messes with your head a little bit. Look, you're not wrong. If your flight gets delayed, if your flight gets directed to their city, you can always call South Alabama because they'll give you buses and pizza, apparently. But there's so many factors, like especially like what Will said, though. It like Tennessee's going to Oklahoma. This should be. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, Tennessee should not be worried about any kind of environment. They've played it enough. They played it at Alabama. They played it at Georgia. They played it at Kentucky. They played it at Missouri. They played.
But not this team, though. That's the caveat.
Yeah, I'm saying I get it. You haven't played this team, but you've played loud places. I'm not saying they're not going to be. They shouldn't be, but they should be more comfortable with getting you. Like some of the guys should at least. Not just saying everyone, but like I said, Sam, I'm not saying not just saying everybody hasn't. I'm saying like some of those guys on the team have. They can help this. They can help Nico out. They can help these other guys out. It's going to be an interesting matchup. But I mean, after seeing what Tennessee did last week and how OU played last week, I'm just not ready to say that Tennessee's going to be barking up a rough tree yet.
Clayton says Kentucky, Missouri.
Missouri is loud, dude.
Kentucky's a hard place to play. Publix, whatever, Kroger Field. Sorry, Publix is not. It's Kroger Field up there. That place gets crazy. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, we got Nico's best friend here saying that he likes playing on the road. I mean, how
might be a bit of SEC bias. Tennessee plays in the SEC. What else would I be talking about?
No, this thing, like
Tennessee is not playing the MAC. I'm sorry, Clayton. Did you not realize that? Is Bowling Green a hard place to play? It wasn't for them in Atlanta. I can tell you that.
But in general, winning on the road is hard. I'm kind of talking about that LSU South Carolina game. Absolutely nuts. Ken mentioned it earlier. I mean, I didn't get to necessarily see it in real time, fellas. But then because you don't get to see everything, I went back and watched it. Look, the officiating was bad. It was bad, and some of those calls were bad. Especially, I have an issue with the interception, the pick six return, how Nussmeier was hit. The fact that the reason that penalty was thrown was because Garrett Nussmeier got hit from the shoulders up. Outside of that,
it was an illegal blindside. That's what they said. And it wasn't.
It was also unnecessary.
It was unnecessary. He was out of the play.
But you're going to hit the quarterback. You got a chance.
Shane Beamer mentioned this, that the first thing that you're coached to do is to take the quarterback out in plays like that. And so it was unnecessary. Now,
don't take him out.
Just a slippery slope.
To eliminate him from the play, from the earth.
Was that his direct quote? Take him out.
Send him to the buses.
Take him out. He'll never come on the show again if I say that. My direct quote. But in all seriousness, like, yes, the referees made mistakes. But I was talking, friend of the show, and he's been on a couple times. Been on his show before. SEC Unfiltered. Chris Phillips. He was there. And we were talking about this after the game. Like, you still have to take advantage. Could we assume that what happened would have happened? What we think would have happened? No, you can't really ever assume anything because, first off, that game was drunk. That game was absolutely nuts. We'll say a couple things that stood out to me from the LSU South Carolina game. Garrett Nussmeier is a certified baller. That joker got hit so many times. Dylan Stewart's going to be a top 5 pick. The guy commented on my tweet and said, why would he not be number 1? I said, it just depends on the team need. We've seen that a couple times where the best player doesn't go number 1, but he is legitimately very, very good. And I know a lot of Tech fans are in here. Kyle Kennard is making a case for an NFL draft pick. I mean, they just looked very good. That might be one of the best defensive lines. And I saw Cole Kubelik said this might be one of the best defensive lines in the SEC that we're just, and maybe in the country we're not talking about. They've got some legitimate dudes. Tonka Hemingway is another guy we just kind of forgot about in the middle. They played very well. Caden Durham needs all the snaps for LSU's running back. That opened up the game for them
on Saturday.
And Harold Perkins kind of getting mad at that. But biggest takeaway from what we're talking about here, you win and you get out of there. I mean, that is the biggest thing in the world. Brian Kelly mentioned it today and kind of made a joke about it, saying by transitive property, which everyone loves to use as a fan in college football, we should beat Georgia pretty bad. And I'm sure that'll end up on a Georgia message board completely out of context. But yeah, it's we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Gavin says you can't talk about Kennard Bryce. Tech has Romello Height now.
Hey, from what I've seen, upgrade.
Upgrade.
There you go. Tennessee hasn't played in a louder game since the Chick-fil-A kickoff game at Mercedes-Benz against Georgia Tech. Our boy Taquan Marshall still has nightmares about that game. All right. That's our 3 takeaways. And real quick, Ralph, go back into the comments. If you did, Dr. Bob does have Will's ugly stat of the week.
Oh, yeah. I got it.
Stat of the week. He did. I don't know, Will. Throwback stat of the week. He said state. This is a state of the week.
Well,
Army A-back.
Yeah, fix it.
Okay. First off, you got Will excited at A-back, and he's just freaking out already. Noah Short.
Well, you had excited at Army.
On 11 carries, 14.5 yards per carry. That's a pretty good one. And he dropped a touchdown pass on a wheel route. How do you know that? Like did Dr. Bob go back and watch that game?
He was there. I told you he's a time traveler, dude. He was that game.
I'm strongly considering just being a full-time Army football fan.
I
watched almost every play of them just
route
pants FAU a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And FAU got a big win this past weekend.
Boca Raton.
FAU, baby.
Yeah. Is what it is. Okay. Well, fellas, Gavin says psychopath. Probably so. All right, let's get to the big theme of the week before we
Sorry,
get
Gavin.
into
I like teams that are physical on the lines of scrimmage.
There we go. And actually recruit offensive linemen.
I would like to say this stat is from the FAU game.
Oh, the Army A-back?
Yeah.
Dr. Bob, we need this week. Factor cap, the Falcons winning tonight. I'm not commenting because I'll never comment if the Falcons are ever going to win again. Here we go. Big theme of the week. Theme of the weekend. Is Napier done? Guys, I shot a text to a guy that I've grown to be friends with, Jacob Rudner, covers Florida for 24/7 Sports, one of the best Florida reporters you'll have out there. And obviously the news was reported that the board of directors was meeting on Sunday. You mentioned a word here a second ago, Will. I'm going to use it here. They just got pants by A&M. They got pants by a backup quarterback. A&M's not bad. They're not a bad football team, but they just don't even look competitive. In Florida, I'm talking about. It's seemingly run its course. I really didn't think we'd see it potentially early in the season. Now, nothing's happened yet, but this is a bad team. I don't know where you look on the schedule and you go get another win. Maybe Mississippi State team that just got blown out by Toledo. Like maybe you win that. And Will, I was crushed in the preseason for saying 2-10 might be the floor. And we're looking at this, and it legitimately might be the floor of this team. Is Napier done? I mean, do you just wipe the slate clean? I know some people have said when you know, you know. What would you do? Let's say you are the athletic director, and I will say the athletic directors, the athletic administration over there is in complete disarray. I was told, just in terms of where they are and what they want to do. Let's say you're in the AD chair. Will, what are you doing here in between week 3 and week 4 about the Billy Napier situation in Gainesville?
Well, I don't know the details of the contract.
It's $28 million buyout.
Does it go down? Like, does it go down like December 1st? I know that's a lot of clauses in a contract. If it goes down at the end of the year, if it goes down once the season ends, you just got to eat it. I mean, you just hold him until that money goes down, because at this point, just like any other program that's going to change their coach, you're trying to save money at this point. You're trying to save money on the guy that you've got now and then go find the right guy. I mean, every good administrator, every good professional general manager should be constantly looking for improvements everywhere or contingency plans. Like if Georgia doesn't have a list of head coaching candidates, if Kirby Smart decided he wanted to retire or go to the NFL after this year, I don't think that they're doing their job up there. So surely they have a list. Surely they're going to start vetting. They go through back channels to do this during the season anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's why all that smoke about Lane Kiffin's out there, because Florida's people have been contacting Lane Kiffin's people. I have zero doubts about that. At this point, you're not going to the playoff, right? You don't have the team that's going to go to the playoff. You're hoping to win 6 games. If you think that there's somebody on this staff that you can elevate to interim head coach that can rally this team and the staff and find a way to get to 6 wins, I think that's the only way you make a change during the season. Otherwise, you just save that money, save your money, and wait till the end of the season. Especially after 3 games, I don't think it does much good, because you look at the teams left on their schedule. I mean, they can at least play spoiler. They can play spoiler to Georgia, to Texas. That's still on their schedule. Like you said, Mississippi State's looking like a winnable game. But, realistically looking at it, and UCF is a good football team, and it would be very unfair to fire Napier after losing to UCF. But that is that would be just a black mark on the program, losing to Central Florida in Gainesville. It wouldn't be fair, but if that happens, you probably have to do it. You have to save face at that point.
Yeah, no, and I'll add this, and Ralph put in a good thing back in the message too. So here are the details, Will, of the Billy Napier contract. It was a 7-year deal with $50 million guaranteed. He signed that back in November of 2021. He made 7.1 in that first year, and then received an annual raise of $100K. So if they decided to buy him out and fire him right now, it would be $25.67 million. That number is 85% of the total remaining compensation. And apparently that per ESPN, they reported this, that the boosters have already gathered that money, which just goes to show you how much money we're talking about in a place like Florida, which if it does happen, we'll have a whole separate show on why Florida is one of the better jobs in the country if they get the person right there. Ralph did mention too in the comments that we do need to know that the whole Jaden Rashada thing, that buyout number could go down if he's found guilty in that, which would be an interesting timeline of would they accelerate that case? I mean, would it be I don't back paid.
Florida's probably
like Florida getting
Florida's
a check
probably
from
telling the NCAA like, let's go. What are we doing? Let's go.
Time out. Would it not be unreal? Okay, let's just say they pull the plug on this. Okay. And then the case happens like in the next 2 months or something like that. And Billy Napier has to write a check to Florida. Like, how do you even go? Who's sending that? Who's
would it be to Florida
off?
or would it be to the NCAA?
No, it'd have to be to Florida because Florida paid out the buyout.
But again, it depends on the language of the contract. A lot of contracts, like I know the way Auburn writes them, if they fire a coach, by December 1st, Auburn has to write a check for 50% of the buyout.
Here we go.
Or by January 1st. Or
it's $12.83 million within the first 30 days after. He would then receive 3.2 every July 15th over the next 4 years. So within a month, he has to get that 12.83.
So he'd probably be forfeiting a lot of those extra payments.
He'd also be forfeiting 2 cars with insurance and a suite at home games with 16 tickets. And he also wouldn't be able to use the aircraft anymore, which I don't know why you would want to use the aircraft if you're not the head coach.
So we need to remember that and celebrate Billy Napier Day on July 15th.
God, you're already putting it into existence. It's going to happen. It's not if, it's
like Bobby Bonilla Day.
Yes. Napier's 12 and 16 at Florida. He's 12 and 16 at Florida, 6 and 11 in the SEC. And this crazy, guys, because this was a guy who was pretty sought after in terms of like he was 40 and 12 at Louisiana, had built a Sun Belt power. Like they were very, very good.
He was going to get the Auburn job.
Yeah, no, he really that's you're not wrong. Like, and he was in line looking at the South Carolina job. Some coaches drive the car to. We're gonna get to that question though here in a second. I just saw Clayton's stat of the year, and that is just terrible. We're not putting that up there. One more stat on this. Oh, on Monday's press conference, today's press conference, he was asked a question if he sees a path to a 4th season. He said 100%. Now, how logical is that idea of a path? Well, I don't know.
What do you expect him to say?
Yeah, that's a dumb question.
I'm gone after this year.
He was also asked the question of does he still have faith in his ability to lead the team? Like he's going to say no. Like I sat in a press conference where that question's been asked. By the way, it was asked to Jeff Collins, and I don't know why you would ask that question because what is he supposed to say? If he says he probably said yes. Right there.
He probably said no. He's probably no.
Yeah, well, Ralph, any kind of thoughts on Napier? I mean, you just go ahead and cut ties. Like, when's their bye week? By the way, when is that? Because for LSU fans, I've already told them be scared because you can get that the Will Mannis. He likes to talk about the interim bump
after Mississippi State.
Oh yeah, if they lose to Mississippi State, he's gone.
Oh, if he loses to UCF, he's gone.
I'll tell you, it's UCF this week? No, it's Mississippi State bye week, UCF at Tennessee, then Kentucky. And then
I don't like the sound of that. I don't.
I'm making a Neyland, dude. They're going to have an interim coach. Florida's going to go in there in Tennessee and then Neyland and beat them.
No, I don't like the sound of that at UCF. Bye week before UCF.
Yeah,
brutal. Ralph, your thoughts on Billy Napier? Should they go ahead and pull the plug? Like, what's this feels like a matter of just when it's going to happen, not if. Not.
I've already sent my money to the board of trustees myself. Get him out of there. He's
no
terrible.
Florida fan.
No. Look, I've always been on the table of you got to give some of these coaches, that come from smaller schools 3 to 5 years. The recruit to build a program, get some guys in there to help out. He has not done that once whatsoever. He's brought some good guys in, but they hadn't kept them. You got a great running back last year. You lost him to Georgia. You can't keep anyone there.
Lagway's leaving if he gets fired. By the way,
absolutely. Lagway might not even play the rest of the year. Just this is like keep himself healthy. I would, but
not a bad choice.
Yeah, I mean, look, at this point, I don't think you have any future with Napier, your head coach. You can save, like you said, you can save it for a few more weeks, but it's gone. He's gone in the year no matter what, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is it. I mean, it's run its course. It is what it is. I don't really know what you could do.
We'll wear a different.
Clayton asks, "Does Gus Malzahn get a call if Kiffin says no?" You have no idea how much this question hurts me.
We'll be wearing different color orange and blue next year.
Would you rock a Florida Gators shirt if he got the call?
Gus?
Yeah, they wear orange and blue. Of course.
Different shade of orange and blue next year.
I don't ever want to put the cart before the horse, fellas, but they're Bet Online, our partners here. They did come out with a list. I don't know if you guys saw this of the most likely betting odds candidates to be the next head coach at Florida. Are you ready for the top 5? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Jamie Chadwell,
Oh, jeez.
Lane Kiffin, Deion Sanders,
Oh boy.
Elia Drinkowitz, Brent Key, and Brian Schottenheimer.
Oh, good God.
That's the top 6. Now, in
Brian
7 and 8,
Schottenheimer.
yeah, I don't even know who that is.
I think
I'm going to keep it 100 with you. I don't even know who that is.
That was Georgia's offensive coordinator. Was it not? Or was that
No,
another Schottenheimer?
He's a Seahawks guy.
He's the OC for the Seahawks? Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
No, he's the OC for the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Brian Schottenheimer.
Is that the same guy that was at Georgia?
Yeah, he was offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach in 2015.
He was awful. Also, Gavin says key to the swamp.
Key to the swamp.
What is his
connection? Have betting odds for head coach positions that aren't even open yet. Read late stage empire stuff. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, look, he's gone. Like, I'll kind of end this topic right here. Like, it's done. It's over with. It is sad because Billy Napier, I think, is a good coach, way in over his head. And it is just it has been bad. And I will say this too: I do not think Florida's administration has helped him out. I don't want to speak on what this job can be. I will just say this: this is a top 20 job in the country. Maybe top.
Look, everybody knows what this job can be. It's national championship.
Some people are rock dwellers, Will, and they refuse to believe that you can win at Florida again. I think it can. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think this is a great job.
Rock dwellers.
But they have to align. Everything has to align. NIL, AD, and coach all have to align.
Florida is such a good job that I think Lane Kiffin would crawl on glass to Gainesville to take the job.
Here's my hot take. And we're not talking anymore about it. If Lane Kiffin took the Florida head coaching job, he win a national title within 5 years.
Yes.
He would.
Yes.
People have forgotten, like, one of the most fertile recruiting bases, especially in Gainesville, because you can pick up into South Georgia and you have the whole state of Florida. We'll leave it right there. But no, Napier's done. Like, when do you pull the plug? Maybe by a week. But this is.
Tell me, give him a week to move out.
Bear Bryant said the one program in the SEC he really feared was Florida. He said if they ever got a coach, they would be a real menace. Yeah, I mean, look, they had one of the best coaches we've seen in the last 20 years in Urban Meyer. It's crazy. I mean, his team is ranked
Steve
5th.
Spurrier before that.
This is a great point. Clayton often just spews nonsense on this show, but don't worry, I'm not going to give you the double birds live. But I mean, his team is ranked, and it's the state of Mississippi. Y'all, I don't think we even understand, and Will has said this, and Will got trolled by some Ole Miss fans during the offseason. Lane Kiffin's working a masterclass. And I think he's about to hit the ceiling of what he can do at Ole Miss, especially this past year. Clayton said, whoa.
Yeah, look at the history of Ole Miss football and then compare it to what Lane Kiffin's done.
Yeah, but Napier's done. It's over. It's just the writing's on the wall. The fat lady's getting ready to sing. She's warming up. That'll probably,
right,
we'll probably get.
Let's get on with the bloodbath.
Let's get on with the bloodbath. All right, here we go. God, why do we have to do this? This is Ralph. Throw it up there. Is it on the screen?
It is now.
All right, I am now going to just a blood bath.
That makes me feel better.
Tennessee, and Tennessee won 71-0. Tennessee covered the spread like at some point during the second quarter. By the way,
it was 60-0 at halftime.
It was brutal.
I
Ralph,
love the red.
Western Kentucky -7.
100 miles of hay, baby.
On week 2, you'd be undefeated.
Yeah, if I didn't just follow my favoritism of Neil for once, just send me through hell for that 1 week.
And then Will,
I'm going 0-12. Going 0-12.
Look at that. Onside up 30.
Tulsa as a football program needs a lot of work, but you just let a 30-year-old quarterback just dice you up.
Hey, let me say something, Will. I texted Bryce during the game. I said, I don't know why Will took Tulsa. They haven't beaten Oklahoma State in 9 years.
They had to cover 20 and a half. I laid out on Wednesday why they were going to win or why they were going to cover. I laid it out on Wednesday.
They
didn't score till there was less than 7 minutes left in the game.
His best bet last Wednesday was the most in depth. Ralph and I've just been firing from the hip. I really have been.
I fired
and I'm 2-2.
100%.
Ralph's 3-1. Will, look, you're 0-4. It's not over yet.
Oh, it's over. I'm going 0-12.
There's still time. There's still time. Alan Bowman said he isn't getting a job.
You can go ahead and update mine, and I'm mad that the line has already come down 2.5 points. Arkansas +3. Go ahead and put it in there.
Are you locking in your best bet? Will, just take some time. Don't be overly emotional.
I'm not being overly emotional.
This might be true. Clayton says I spew less nonsense in those bets. That might be. Will is the
You're just salty about
Will is the Billy Napier of best bets in 2020.
Mike Norvell also. At least Florida's won a game.
That's true. Florida has won a game. All right. That's our best bets. Once again, we'll be live on Wednesday night previewing week 4. We'll talk a lot of SEC football, and look, we'll talk about it too. Georgia Tech Louisville. That's a big game. I'll be previewing that on Thursday night, so make sure you lock it in. Thanks so much for watching. If you've been watching live, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like the channel. If you're listening in podcast form, make sure you obviously do everything you do there. Follow us on social media, crowdedbooth.com. Come hang out with us. It's a great time. And join that Discord. Great college football conversation, whether you're any type of fan. You got to have tough skin. You got to have some thick skin, but it's a good time. We will see you next time. It's Will Manis. It's Ralph Leary. My name is Bryce Koon. Shout out to Believe for sponsoring the show, and not Believe, betonline.ag. Make sure you use code BELIEVE50 to match that initial deposit. Get some more money in your pocket. Not if you're taking Will's bets, though. We'll catch you next time here in the Crowded Booth.
Pile in here and make yourself feel at home. The Crowded Booth is coming on. The Crowded Booth with Bryce Koon.